Hello and welcome to another episode of the Teacher Talks podcast series from TalentHut TESOL Academy. This is me, your host, Sabina Rustamova, greeting you from the land of fire, Azerbaijan. Today's conversation is one I'm especially excited about because our guest is a visionary ELT leader, teacher trainer with over a decade of global experience in curriculum design, teacher development, and educational leadership. Recognized for driving innovation in language education, delivering high-impact training across Middle East and North Africa, and of course, international platforms. Mr. Mohammed is also the founder of Educas International. Mr. Mohammed, welcome to the board. Please greet our listeners, audience, and subscribers.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Hello, everyone, and good morning. Yeah, it's the morning here, and it's a bit cold. It's 9 degrees in the morning. For some countries, it's not that cold, but it's cold here because we're not used to that weather. But anyway, I'm really glad to be part of this. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the episode title wasn't chosen at random. After reading Mr. Mohammed's recent article in the e-magazine, I was inspired to select re-engineering motivation when engagement becomes a negotiation as our focus today. We'll unpack the essence of this thought-provoking phrase quote a little later in the conversation. So let's get started with your regional experience. You've delivered ELT workshop across Middle East and North Africa region. What common challenge do teachers in this region face, and how do these shape the focus of your training?
Well, okay. So I've had lots of challenges, but the most common challenge is trying to bridge the gap between expectations and reality. Because teachers are expected to be superheroes, integrating technology, differentiated instruction, and following like a strict curriculum, often without having enough time or support from anyone. For example, I recently worked with teachers who had about 45 students in a room, and they were told to do individualized feedback. So imagine having 45 students in the same class, and it is necessary to give each one personalized and individualized feedback. So this is insane. And actually, this is mathematically impossible without, of course, burning out. And because of this, my training, whether for any place I work for, focuses on making things simple. It's all about simplification. So I myself teach low prep, high impact strategies. If a strategy takes up to 2 hours to prepare for a 45 or a 40-minute lesson, I tell them to scrap it. So we focus on decision making, how to do less, but with more impact. So this is the biggest challenge I face on a daily basis in teacher training.
Thank you very much. And that's incredibly insane, as you mentioned, to have that large scale class. Unfortunately, it's the same here. Yeah. So, let's talk about the culture and context align with each other, and actually they are key in education. How do you adapt your workshop to respect cultural and educational differences across those regions while still maintaining consistent pedagogical standards? You mentioned a little bit earlier, but can you please expand it more?
Okay, well, I always start by listening. So the context here in Saudi Arabia is completely different from the context in Egypt, because I'm originally from Egypt and I'm based right now in Saudi Arabia in the eastern province, in Al Khobar city. So the context is different, even if we're speaking the same language, the same first language. If you're teaching a student in a private school in Egypt, that will be much more different than teaching a student in a private school or a university here in Saudi Arabia. And of course, the same thing applies to other contexts. So, for example, talking about learner autonomy looks completely different in different cultures. In some places, asking students to choose their own homework feels a little bit
Mhm.
chaotic, right? In others, it's expected. So while I keep the principle, students need agency, I adapt the practice.
Mhm.
In a more traditional setting, we might start small, like by giving students a choice between topic A or topic B. Would you like to do this or do that?
Mhm.
Rather than just throwing them into a deep end. Would you like to shoot a video, record yourself talking, or just write things down and take a screenshot or take a photo and send it to me? You got it? So I help teachers adapt the international standard to fit their local reality.
Mhm.
So it's not a one, two, three fact. It's not a fixed rule because
Mhm.
again, contexts are different, students are different, mindsets are different. So we have the basics, we have the standards, and we try to adapt them to our own teaching or teacher training contexts.
Okay, great. So actually, you are doing, you're thinking globally, but doing everything locally, as I understood.
Exactly, that's right. Because one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, building on that, let's talk about teacher talks. Sorry, teacher skills. So I would like ask you, thinking about teacher development more broadly, in your experience, which ELT skills are currently most underdeveloped among teachers, and what do you think? What the reason underlying that?
That's a really good question. It's a tough one.
Mhm.
I would say reflective practice
Mhm.
and lesson design
Mhm.
because many teachers are great performers when it comes to delivering a textbook page perfectly,
Mhm.
but they struggle to explain why they chose a specific activity.
Mhm.
So, yes, they know how to do it, but they don't know why, the rationale behind everything. So, I often ask trainees, why did you use this game there?
Mhm.
What's the rationale? And if the answer is just because the students like it,
Mhm.
this is a poor answer. This is not enough. It needs to be maybe to check their understanding of the past tense before we moved on.
Mhm.
So I try to help them move from being technicians who follow a manual to being decision makers who understand the learning design, the process of designing learning.
Mhm.
So it's about reflective practice, why this happens, why it happens in a particular time or in a particular moment of the lesson.
What do you think? Why teachers are getting stuck, like among those questions while answering? They cannot respond it precisely, right? What do you think?
Yeah,
Like, what kind of underlying factor? So might be
exactly.
that might be they take into consideration more students' desire rather than any education, academic, let's say, skills. What do you think?
You know, the problem is when you really think that the best thing or the most important thing is the students like what you're doing, you
Mhm.
fail to respond to their needs.
Definitely.
I'm gonna take my child,
Mhm.
for example. If I respond to all of his needs, including maybe buying him a toy or allowing him to play a game or something like that, maybe this contradicts with what
Mhm.
is really right for him. So you are the teacher and you know what is best for your learners. So it's not always about um, giving them what they like. It's about actually understanding what they need and
Mhm.
responding to those needs. You
Okay.
got it? So, yeah, so it is good things don't always have to be preferable to us. And
Mhm.
it's a fact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the easiest things to us are not the best solutions
Yeah,
to us,
definitely.
whatever the context is.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
but of course, teachers make a lot of mistakes, and
Hmm.
we know that, right?
Yeah, we are human beings, so
Exactly,
Mistakes
that's
are
right.
always welcome. So, all right. So let's talk about a little bit technology, how integrated to the real classroom environment. Can you
Mhm.
please let me know that you emphasize aligning pedagogy with digital tools and curriculum goals? What mistakes do teachers often make when integrating technology into ELT environment?
Okay, we all agree that technology is always there.
Yes.
Okay, so and now with the evolvement of AI, well, everything has become so much easy. To me, the best classes are the ones where I only have the markers and the whiteboard and a
Mhm.
couple of worksheets. That's the best
Mhm.
um, teaching experience ever I can ever have.
Mhm.
But the biggest mistake is using technology because it's always there, is using technology just because it's there.
Mhm.
We call it the shiny object syndrome. Okay, I've seen many teachers spend 15 minutes setting up a virtual reality headset just to show a picture of an apple. Just show them the picture. You got it? Just a sheet of paper having a picture on it or a photo of the apple, or just bring the apple to the classroom.
Yeah.
We'll just do it, right? A flashcard would have taken 1 second. So why bother yourself? Why waste your valuable time and the students' valuable time? As someone who talks a lot about the importance of AI in education, I always say pedagogy comes first, technology second.
Mhm.
If ChatGPT or an application doesn't solve a specific problem, like saving you time or making a concept clearer, then it's just some kind of noise. Don't use
Mhm.
it. Don't use
Yeah,
technology to
definitely.
impress students. Use it to facilitate. So we have to understand that as teachers, we use things to help us make things easier,
Mhm.
not to overwhelm us, not to overwhelm our learners, not to waste our time.
Okay. So actually, you move ahead and covered my another question. Can you please just briefly tell me what advice would you give to the teachers who feel overwhelmed? So it's just with one sentence or with two sentences.
I'm going to start with an example here, okay?
Mhm.
Because I do teacher training, I do talks at conferences, and I do webinars. And in order to ensure that my audience are engaged, I just use the chat box or polls. Okay. So this makes things easier for me and also for the attendees. I don't have to use fancy apps. I don't have to use other platforms because technology, when it fails, it ruins everything, right? The over reliance on technology is a disaster. So my piece of advice is to stop trying to master everything. Pick one tool that actually makes your life easier. Take AI, for example. I don't have to master ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Suno, and other platforms. Do not try to build a complex chatbot. Just use it to generate ideas. Maybe generate 3 discussion questions for your reading text. That's it. The simpler, the better. Okay. So if you use, for example, an app to grade
Mhm.
assignments, yes, the this app might save you some time. It might save you an hour of grading.
Mhm.
Use that. Okay. But if a tool adds to your stress, if
Mhm.
it adds to your workload, don't use it. Okay. Well, you have my permission to delete it. So technology is there to
Mhm.
serve you, not the other way around.
Mhm. Yeah. So, all right, thank you very much for your insightful comments. So, let me give you another question, which is related to methodology. Can you please tell me how do you define, sorry, which cutting-edge language teaching methodologies are currently making the biggest difference in real classrooms?
Well, okay. Methodologies are many, okay? But the ones that are really making the biggest difference right now are the ones that focus on learner agency or learner autonomy and meaningful communication. And, we are seeing a huge shift away from the generic communicative language teaching towards things like project-based learning or inquiry-based learning. For example, and instead of just practicing some vocabulary about food, students might design a menu for a restaurant that solves a local health problem, for example, that follows a particular diet. So it treats the student as a thinker, but this thinker has a voice, not just a receiver, a passive receiver of the language. So let's say methodologies that focus on promoting learner agency and meaning.
Thank you very much. So just, sorry.
No worries.
All right, so you design customized training programs to link to the context-specific ESC challenges. What factors do you consider first when compiling program?
Well, it's like going to a doctor, and the doctor cannot tell you which medicine to take without knowing what you're exactly suffering from. So I look at the pain points. I look at what makes teachers, what keeps them awake at night. When I design a course, I base my courses on the problems teachers face. So I ask, is the issue that students are bored, for example, or is the issue that teachers are exhausted from grading assignments or homework? So if the teachers are burnout, I won't give them a heavy theory session. I'll give them just some kind of time-saving strategies. So the context isn't about geography, isn't about the place where teachers are coming from. It's about the emotional and professional reality of the staff.
Yeah. How can teachers avoid importing one-size-fits-all solutions into diverse classrooms? So can you please just a little bit expand the response related to that?
Oh, okay. So some people um, take methods as facts, so they need to follow them as exactly as they are. So my way out of this is treating methods as options, not rules. Okay, not facts. So teachers are the experts in the room. If the textbook says put the students in groups, but the class is particularly rowdy that day, well, the teacher might change it to think, for example, to think pair share, okay, or maybe some kind of individual work. I encourage teachers to treat methods like a menu so they can choose from and they can combine and mix a couple of methods together, because again, the most important thing for teachers, the priority is to respond to the learner's needs. One method might not do this job. Okay, so maybe mixing a couple of methods together would do it, right? So teachers have to taste the food, have to taste the method and season it to fit this method or these methods to the learner's palate. So to sum it up, if it doesn't fit, change it. Okay, because one of the biggest challenges also is when a teacher thinks that this is the salvation. Well, this method would serve every single student in the classroom. And to their surprise, one student just opens their their mouth and just seems like that they don't understand anything, right? Or raises their hand and just say, teacher, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So this is a nightmare for every teacher, right? So one size doesn't fit all. So we just use methods as options, and we just try to find out what
Adapted.
works best for our learners. Exactly, adapted
Adapted
to
to the
the
current
different learners we
situation,
teach.
let's say, to conditions.
Ex-
Yes.
exactly, that's right. And and sorry for that. I just want to add something really important because I train teachers, and I used to be a teacher trainer, a head of department, and a teacher as well in Egypt before I come here to Saudi Arabia. And the same thing didn't work exactly the same here. And this convinced me with the fact that one size doesn't fit all. Okay, so yeah, I started to not believe in some of the teaching methodologies I train teachers on because of the differences. So I had to adapt. And this justifies the saying that one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
What works here might not work there.
Work there.
Whatever you do.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly,
definitely.
exactly, that's right.
So, if you could change just one thing, so based on your work with teachers across diverse environments, what single change would you most improve in ESL classrooms today?
Okay, there are a lot of things actually, but um, what is a priority to me is the change or moving from covering the whole materials that we have to focus more on meaningful communication. Too
Mm-hmm.
many teachers are racing to finish unit one
Yeah.
by Thursday, for example. But if the students cannot actually use the language you're teaching in unit one or unit two, three, or four, what was the point? What is the point of teaching them after all, right? So if we just try to slow down and focus on making the language meaningful to the learners, connecting it to their lives, engagement would go up. And of course, they would learn faster, right? So we need to change the fact that we need to cover the materials to um, uncovering meaning more, okay, working more on meaningful communication. That's what matters. This is why we're teaching the language, right?
I agree, but unfortunately nowadays we have to accept that schools' demand requires us different things. So for that reason, we are in the rat race. So
Yeah,
we try to
that's
speed
so
up. Yes.
unfortunate. But we need to find that balance between finishing the materials
Yeah.
and also providing the learners with a language that they can really use.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the biggest problems as a language learner for me
Mm-hmm.
is trying to bridge the gap between what I was taught in the classroom and speaking and using that in daily life conversations. As a non-native English speaker,
Mm-hmm.
I found it really difficult. I struggled using
Mm-hmm.
the language in some contexts, in some situations. Why? Because I was only taught for the sake of the test.
Mm-hmm.
We need to finish from unit one to unit six in order to prepare for the test, right?
Exactly.
For the sake of using the language in daily life conversations. And
The
that's a
same.
problem.
The same. Yes. So let's reflect on the roles of teachers play. Mentor,
Okay.
teacher, leader, and please complete the rest, let's say, roles. And what do you think? How do these
Uh,
expressions align to each other in the context?
well, there are a lot of words we can use. There are a lot of roles a teacher can play, and they are all the same. Okay. And we can call this role um, as an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
When I taught at a particular private university in Egypt, my goal wasn't just to teach English, it was to enable students to succeed in their academic careers.
Mm-hmm.
When I train teachers, I enable them to feel confident. So whether I'm leading a department, working in a classroom, teaching, training teachers in a training program, or in a particular company, my job is to remove barriers and to
Mm-hmm.
give people the ability and the tools to reach their own potential. So let's say we can get rid of all of these names, all of these terms, and we just say that a teacher is an enabler.
Enabler, all right. So, can you describe any mentoring moment that reaffirmed your belief in coaching as a powerful tool for change?
Well, okay, I can use my story as a powerful tool of change. Okay, so but to mention an example for a teacher I really worked with, I worked with lots of teachers who were really ready to quit teaching.
Mhm.
And one of those teachers was a female teacher. She felt she had lost control over her class.
Mhm.
Okay. So, and instead of just giving her a lecture on classroom management, because again, one size doesn't fit all.
Mhm.
Okay. And I don't know her students. She knows them better than me. So I just sat with her and asked, when was the last time you saw them engaged?
Mhm.
So she realized that it was just during a specific game she had in one of her lessons. So we analyzed why. She realized she had the answers all along. So it's not about giving lectures. It's
Mhm.
about asking the right questions to teachers to identify the needs and to also recognize that where the issue is. So seeing her confidence return wasn't because I fixed her attitude in dealing with the classroom, but because I helped her see her own strength points.
Mhm.
And that's actually the power of coaching,
Yeah.
not just telling, helping others recognize where their strength points are.
Yeah. So sometimes we're looking for the answer somewhere else, but in fact, they are hidden inside of us. So actually, we need just
Exactly.
one person, leader, how we can name that person, coach, yes, to reveal it out. Yeah, okay. So, one more thing, like one more quote that I took from your article was the traditional promise of English no longer resonated with a growing number of students. Motivation once assumed had to be negotiated. What does negotiation look like in a real classroom nowadays?
Well, okay, so in the past, the deal was simple: learn English, get a high paying job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So today, with the translation apps and global competition, that's not always true. And of course, there are some other factors. Uh, in 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 a framework I have developed is which is the lead framework.
Mm-hmm.
I observe two contexts, and I would call them the abundance context and the scarcity
Mm-hmm.
context. In the abundance context, the learners usually have everything they have. They have everything they need. So why bother themselves learning English,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in the scarcity context, the students do not believe that English would help them. Yes, they want to learn English to get a good job, to get better future, but the problem is that they can see influencers,
Mm-hmm.
YouTubers, bloggers,
Mm-hmm.
succeeding without the real need for learning English, right? They just have to shoot videos, live stream or something, and then they are there, right? Now they are making money, and money is what makes them successful in our life these days, right? So, in order to convince the learners with the fact that they need to learn English to get a high paying job in the different contexts,
Mm-hmm.
don't really work. It no longer works. So, and today everything is available to the learners, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a student might not care about a job.
Mm-hmm.
They might care about understanding maybe a gaming streamer or a meme culture. Believe me, sometimes I see memes on social media. I don't understand them, okay? Because maybe I'm from another generation,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So we have to understand what the learners are exposed to. We have to negotiate motivation by connecting English to their identity understand their voice, not just a future paycheck. Because if you think that you really understand this generation, if you really understand what really motivates them, you're definitely wrong.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is where I got the idea of coming up with a new framework to boost motivation.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, yes, our generation is completely different with the current one. We were flying over the clouds while dreaming, but in fact, nowadays, this generation requires more reality rather than any dreams. So that's why I think that might be one of those reasons. So, all right. So you mentioned that your article just related to the self-made, self-tailored lead framework that
Mhm.
was featured in Edwards Pro, its Electron magazine. So what inspired you to develop this framework? Just shortly, you mentioned some, let's say, points, but what was the main inspiration that you got to develop this kind of framework?
Okay, well, actually, this is a secret, but I'm gonna reveal it today.
Please
Yeah,
reveal it.
um, yeah. The last work experience I had in Egypt was some kind of tough
Mhm,
because the type of students I was used to having
mhm,
was completely different. Students didn't respond that well in the classroom because I thought that I knew their needs. I knew how to deal with them. And I'm a teacher trainer. I'm the head of department. So I must be a successful teacher in the classroom. And
mhm,
every day I went out of the classroom frustrated because things didn't exactly go as planned.
mhm,
I reflected at home about what happened and why it happened, and I couldn't find an answer.
mhm,
When I came here to Saudi Arabia, I tried to use a mix of methodologies to
mhm,
adapt to the cultural differences, to adapt to the students' needs, or the needs I claimed to know. Okay, because I I I I realized later that I wasn't aware enough of the students' needs these days. Okay, so whatever I did, I failed. I
mhm,
even thought about quitting teacher training
mhm,
because I've lost my belief in some methodologies, some approaches, some strategies because they just don't work.
mhm,
I still remember a student one day telling me, "Teacher, why should I bother myself learning English if I already have my company?
mhm,
Okay, my family already own their business and I can take over once I finish my studies. So why should I bother myself learning after all, right?" So every day I reflected and I tried to come up with something to understand what's going on. And actually, it wasn't about the methodologies, it wasn't about classroom management or classroom discipline, it was about motivation. Okay. So I created the LEAD framework because I saw that great teaching requires an open approach, a holistic approach. So it stands for leadership, owning your classroom, empowerment, developing teacher agency, adaptability, embracing things like AI and educational technology, and distinction, the power of word, the power of voice,
mhm,
helping learners with um, public speaking.
mhm,
Okay. So, for example, when generative AI appeared, adaptability meant we didn't ban it, right?
mhm,
We learned how to use it for our own advantage. So that's where the lead framework, that's where the idea of the lead framework came. Understanding learners' motivation, what motivates them, and trying to adapt that to that context. And let me give you an example. Um, for regarding AI, for example, AI
mhm,
use. So if you keep telling the learners that you need to learn English to help you. Okay, now you can use AI to enhance your own language. You can talk to it and it can help you with correcting your
Mhm.
mistakes. This is some kind of boring to
Mhm.
most of the learners we know these days. But instead of that, in the scarcity context, we can talk to a learner and saying that if you really want to learn how to be a successful influencer, a
Mhm.
successful blogger, a successful YouTuber, a TikToker, and so on, you need to learn how the algorithms work.
Work. Mhm.
And in order to learn about that, you need to learn English because everything about that is just in English.
Mhm.
If you really want to get some brand new ideas, you need to learn English because you will always find them in English on the internet.
Mhm.
And if you stay until they are translated to your own language,
Mhm.
you will be so much late,
Mhm.
right? You can't even compete with others. And that's for the scarcity context. Regarding the abundance context, I still remember an activity I conducted in one of my classes.
Mhm.
And because the learners already have everything, so and instead of asking them about what it takes
Mhm.
to be a good employee in a company, what it takes to be a successful citizen, I asked them a question, just one question. Guys, now you're about to um, start your own business, work
Mhm.
in groups, and list some
Mhm.
of the challenges you might face or you might struggle with to start this business in reality. So this is to focus on the students' leadership skills, right? And of course, I'm forcing them to use English while working on leadership. And this is what they really need. So I'm not telling them, guys, you need to work together and find out what you need to become good leaders that directly. No, I'm just trying to convince them that I'm giving them the right
Uh,
tools, like the English
Better.
language, to
Yes.
become leaders
Mhm.
without forcing them to do that.
Mhm.
So one of the low level learners in my class came up with a brilliant answer.
Mhm.
Teacher, I need a loan from the bank in order to start my business because I don't have enough money for that.
Mhm.
So that's a brilliant idea. Now he's talking, right? Now he's producing real language. And this actually convinced me that the idea really works. When you really understand what the learners really need, you will
Mhm.
make it, right? But if you keep convincing them with what you think would work for them, it might not always work. So this is actually where the idea came from.
Yeah.
Understanding learner motivation, what motivates them, and why they should even learn the language.
Yeah, that's great actually, to have that kind of story behind the framework. So finally, for teachers who feel stuck, let's give some kind of advice. What advice would you give to teachers who feel stuck, who feel author block, and unsure how to elevate their instructional quality?
Well, regarding my piece of life, there are a lot. But the one I would really focus on is go back to your why when you're
Mhm.
drowning. It's easy to forget why you started. Why are you even teaching? Okay. So I always tell teachers, recall that one moment as students face lit up because they finally understood something. You remember the aha moment.
Mhm.